Hello, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator. And that means that working together, we can make sure that you achieve your career objectives faster than you would on your own. We can work on a range of career challenges. For example, we can help you progress your career by, for instance, devising a strategy so that you get this promotion that you so richly deserve. Or we can help you repackage your skills and pitch them so that you can make a bid for this overseas assignment, or you can go and talk to your line manager about a role with greater responsibilities, or make a lateral move. We can support you in your current role by helping you polish and maybe even develop skills around core areas like communication, influence, conflict, presentations, but also team management, effectiveness, and leadership presence. Finally, we can help you make a very quick and successful return to the workforce if you've been on a career break, and we can help you redefine success if you would like to shift gears in your career and try another industry. The important thing for you to know is that no matter what your agenda, working together will make sure you'll get to where you want to be in both a time and cost-efficient way. So welcome, and indeed, if you're watching this video shortly after I've posted it, it's September, so let me welcome you back after a very full summer. It's 2012, so it's the summer of the Olympics in London, and that was a fantastic experience. But I hope that on a more personal level you had the chance to take a time out, relax, get a tan, and just get away. And so welcome back. And you know, there is something that I always keep in mind when I think of the months of September. It is the months during which most people make decisions in the year. It's not January, even though we think of January, as the month of the New Year's resolution. But no. For instance, it is September, which is the month when gyms receive the most of new subscriptions. People take their new gym memberships in September, not in January, and they show up for exercise. September is the month when people kick off things and take action on decisions, like stopping to smoke or finally looking for that house they've been talking about. So in the spirit of September being a little bit decision-making month, if you will, I thought I would talk to you today in this little tutorial around your decision-making process. I'm going to share with you some elements of an effective and yet very simple approach to decision-making, and that will give you a chance to do two things. First, to self-assess, to take a look at how you make decisions today, what you find comfortable, what you find a little bit more challenging, what you're good at, and what you might be less good at. And then with the elements of your self-assessment and the elements of this tutorial, to consider where you might tweak your approach so that you would become an even more effective decision maker. And clearly, the more we get the process of making decisions right, possibly the more right our decisions will be in turn. So let's start. I'm going to share with you today the PICK model, P-I-C-K, 4 letters for 4 components. But as you will see later on, PICK is original because it's a model that can really flex to your preferred style of decision making. So it's really interesting in that aspect. But let me start then with the first 2 letters, P and I. And those are about how you go about making decisions, how about you go about finding the information that you need for your decision-making process. We make decisions all the time during the day, and most of the time we're not aware of the fact that we've made a decision. Think about taking a break at work and deciding to go and having a coffee. You're probably not even aware that that was a decision that you made, to stand up and go get your coffee. And what was the information that you needed in order to make that decision? Well, you needed to know that you felt like a coffee, and you needed to know that you didn't have a meeting to run to in the next 2 minutes, so that indeed you had the space in your diary for a 10-minute break. Easy. Completely below the conscious awareness, because nothing challenging about that is there. But still, there was a process of implicit information gathering and then information processing. So P and I are about the ways that we typically like to approach reality and gather information from it. P stands for perceive, and as you can see from the word, it's around the perceptible. And so here it's around a preferred style which emphasizes the five senses, a sensory approach. We like to look at data that we can see, that we can hear, that we can touch, feel and smell. So it's about facts and figures, something hard and tangible. And it's also about drawing on experience, thinking, hang on, this reminds me of a similar experience, and I did this, and I looked at that. And so drawing on experience, again, as a source of information, as part of the input process, before you start chewing and making the decision. So that's perceive. At the other end of the spectrum, the I is for imagine. And that's because there, it's a completely different approach. It's much more intuitive. And that's the kind of folks who seem to have a sixth sense. They suss out the situation, they see connections, they have a third eye. And typically, rather than looking at the past and drawing on experience, imaginative folks will look to the future and what could be. Let me use a very, very simple example to tell you more about the differences between the P and the I. Can I ask you to think of an apple? Very simple, right? Now, if I am going to approach an apple from the mode of perceive, I'm going to tell you how big it is, what the color is, how it smells, and then when I start biting into it, how it tastes. But if I'm more in the imagine mode, then I'm going to say, oh, an apple. That makes me think of New York City, the Big Apple. And also reminds me of that childhood story that really made such a big impression on me. William Tell, who had to shoot through an apple located on the very head of his son. Wow, that I will never forget it. And when he did that, William Tell, he was actually not trying to kill his son, he was trying to save his life by shooting through the apple on the little boy's head. So you see, a very, very different approach. And you can also see the richness of the two approaches. How facts and figures and what we can see and hear and touch and so on and so forth can be so important to figure out, and at the same time opening it up. Otherwise, if you get buried in the data, you could lose the forest for the trees. And if you are only there in outer space seeing all these possible meanings, you are not very grounded. So let me encourage you, when you're at that stage of gathering information for an important, challenging decision, try to look at it both from the perceive and the imaging mode. Ground your decision in facts and figures, and open it to make sure you also get the benefits, the inspiration from a more intuitive mode. So that's the P and the I. And now the C and the K. So those are the two letters that look at how we process that information and get to our decision. At the C, it's for consider. And a considered approach to decision making will indeed want to have a fairly logical approach. Look for consistency, look for cause and effects, causality. It's also an approach that's going to look at options and is going to weigh those options, the pros and cons. And is going to come out with recommendations that have relative strengths and weaknesses, benefits and drawbacks, right? Now, if you think of the workplace, we are quite often encouraged to formulate our decisions in that considered approach. But what sometimes happens is that we miss out on another mode of decision, which is the K mode. And K is for kin. As in next of kin? Because this is a mode of decision that puts to the fore an interest in the human impact of decisions. That's where we think about who is going to be affected by the decision and how they will be affected. It's also a more collegial approach that wants for the majority of people to be positive about the outcome, to get buy-in, And so it is also a more consultative approach where the decision maker is likely to talk more about the decision and get advice from others. Whereas the considered approach will be less consultative. Now, if you think of something in real life, let's say a friend calls you and they've just been burgled, and you rush to their home. What do you do first? Right? Now, a considered person will visit the house and make sure the burglar has actually left and it's not dangerous anymore to be there. They will call the police. And then they will, go and make a tea and sit with their friend and comfort them. The person who operates more in the kin mode will rush to the friend, give them a hug, sit with them on the sofa, hold their hand, listen to them, and then, having ascertained that the friend is okay, calm enough, they will call the police. You see the difference? One is helpful and pragmatic, the other is supporting, caring. The two types of individuals will do very similar activities, but not in the same order. And all of them will have a positive impact on their friend, and the friend will be happy to have called them. So you can get to the same result, but you get there in a different way, and that's really what the difference between C and I is about. Now, another example, more around the workplace. A lot of us in the workplace are experiencing tremendous change. All of us have to deal with the fact that the market is changing, and some business areas, and here I'm thinking about finance, which is, as you know, the area I know more about, those areas are no longer so profitable. So a considered approach will say, the P&L is impacted, we're not making as much money, and so as a result of that, you can see here the logical approach, we need to merge these two teams and we need to close that desk, and therefore we will lower our costs and we will be back into profitability. Very logical, very crisp, very business. But hey, what about the people? Even in the manufacturing industry, where there's much more machines and they produce things rather than the service industry, there's lots of people. So how about looking at change from the point of view of the people? If we close a desk, what are going to happen to the people there? Are we able to relocate them elsewhere in the farm? So you see how bringing together a logical, very business-orientated approach to decision-making around change and articulating the case for change and what the implications of change are is extremely useful. But considering how the change will affect the people, how the implementation of the change can happen with the support of the staff to make the transition as smooth as possible, to not lose talented individual, and in fact to get staff to champion the change because they've bought into it. How fantastically these two combine. So that's what I wanted to share with you, that there are two ways of looking at information, and then there are two ways to processing the information you've gathered. And that if you try a little bit of all of that, you will have a much richer decision-making process. I would expect that as you listen to me and you think to yourself, so what do I enjoy in terms of information gathering, and then how I like to process this information, that you will be more a P or an I, and you will be more a C or a K. And so that the interest there is to flex a little bit, to tweak, and to incorporate in your approach today, not just your favored mode of operation, but a little bit from the other side, and make that richer, and I would say more value adding. Now to conclude, I said to you that PIC is interesting because you can flex it. And indeed, if you think to yourself, I'm somebody who likes to approach reality and inform myself by looking at data. But once I've had the data, I'm really concerned about what it means for people. Then your process is that clearly you're starting at P, because you like data. And so I suggest that before you move to processing the data you got at P, spend a little bit of time at I. Try and see if you can broaden your perspective. And then go to K, which is your decision-making process, which favors the human element. But don't forget, before you take your decision, to have a little moment also at C, and make sure that your proposal, your decision is anchored in an analytical and logical, consistent approach. And so your journey of decision making becomes PIKC. So that's the way you use PIK. Now some people will indeed use PIK, PICK, but other people will also use it IPCK or IPKC. And that's the four different types that are appearing on your screen right now. So you see there's four ways to use PIK, ways that reflect your favorite approach to decision making, and encourage you to flex it a little bit so that you avail yourself of the richness of a different mode of operation. So that's it. I hope that this has been useful, and I hope that you will think about how you make decisions today, and that you will want to share your decision-making process by putting a comment. So let me know, what do you enjoy about decisions? Are you comfortable about when it comes to decision making? And do you think that PIK can help you get even better? I'd love to hear from you. And so my email, as usual, is appearing at the bottom of the screen here. So now it's time for me to say goodbye, and thank you as always for watching. I hope this was of service. I'll look forward to seeing you very shortly for another career tip, and until then, keep very well. Thanks again, and bye-bye.